for joining us today. I am Jess Jackson, and I am representing the Office of Cannabis Management's Division of Social Equity. I'm the Director of Social Equity. Today, my colleague Lucy Angelis and I will be providing an overview of our CanRenew and CanGrow grant programs, which are aiming to support community investments and to assist farmers into entering the legal cannabis industry. The Office of Cannabis Management, or OCM, was established under Minnesota Statute 342. Our mission includes promoting public health and welfare, ensuring public safety, and eliminating the illicit cannabis market. We are committed to supporting a craft and industry while prioritizing growth and recovery in communities that have been disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition. If you are not familiar with what social equity means in Minnesota, this is we have social equity applicants who have been given first market access, and many of you or some of you might not know, we are going through our first pre-approval process to get social equity applicants into the industry. But the folks who qualify for social equity are our veterans and those who have been dishonorably discharged from the military due to a cannabis offense. And then our cannabis justice impacted community, those who have been convicted of an offense, those who had a parent or guardian or a child convicted of offense. And so that also farmers are eligible to be social equity verified, and then folks who live in communities that have been over criminalized. And there's some there are some categories around how we define that. So all of this is available in statute and also on our website. The Division of Social Equity is another aspect of social equity that is outlined in statute, but the Division of Social Equity within the Office of Cannabis Management helps to promote development, stability, and safety in communities that have experienced a disproportionate negative impact from cannabis prohibition and usage. And the way that we go about that work is through a few different lanes. One is we get to engage with and represent the community. So this is one way that we're engaging with the community. And I want to name that this is a listening session, right? This is before our application process for these grants have been released, and we have gotten questions. Thank you for those who have filled out our pre-question form. Most of those questions are going to be answered in this presentation. Some of them we answer at the end, and many of them will be listed online on our website in our FAQ guide. So make sure you check back there. But this is a part of our community engagement strategy to make sure that the aims of this grant program has gotten feedback from what the community wants to see from them. So in addition to that, we will be administering grants. So we have our CanRenew and CanGrow grant, which we will talk about today. We act as the ombudsman person. So we investigate complaints and provide and facilitate dispute resolutions. We also report to the office on the status of complaints and social equity, both within the cannabis industry here in Minnesota and at large. We also are responsible for reporting to the legislature about our grant program. We have a team of 8. We are still hiring, but we have the director, an ombudsman person, social equity analyst, a grant manager who is Lucy, who you'll meet today, and 2 grants coordinators and an executive assistant. Please note, like I said, this is a listening session that is happening before our application process is open. So all of the information that's provided in the session is for informational purposes and is not final. All of the details regarding the grants administered by the Office of Cannabis Management are subject to change, and hopefully will, because we want to incorporate feedback that you've provided, and should not be considered definitive guidance. We encourage you to refer to our official sources on our website for the most current and accurate information. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Lucy, who will give an overview of our grants.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad you guys could join us here on this Friday afternoon. So I'm here to talk to you about 2 programs, CanRenew and CanGrow. We'll start with the CanRenew. The CanRenew program is designed to support eligible organizations that invest in communities with long-term residents who qualify as social equity applicants. These grants, they can range from $50,000 to $200,000, and projects will probably last about 12 months. Our priority is to fund organizations with strong community backing, a focus on youth engagement, and those organizations that have a proven track record of successful investments in communities. So next we have some definitions, because we all need definitions, so we all know that we're talking about the same thing. So we've defined community investment as a project or program designed to improve those community-wide outcomes or experiences, and may include efforts targeting, economic development, health, violence prevention, youth development, civil legal aid, as well as several others. Eligible community just is talking about those communities that were adversely impacted by those by the war on drugs and have long-term residents. And then eligible organization just means any organization able to make an investment in those communities. And they can be educational institutions, private businesses, nonprofits, government, community groups, or some combination therein. And then, of course, program is our CanRenew grant program. So go to the next slide. So our CanRenew focus. So the focus of CanRenew is on community stabilization and safety. Part of that comes from our mission within statute, put the potential projects that fall into these categories that contribute to economic development, improving the social determinants of health, addressing violence prevention, supporting youth development, or providing civil legal aid. Those types of projects will be considered. The projects do not have to be directly related to cannabis, but should have a meaningful impact on the community, especially communities that were adversely impacted by the war on drugs. And we are looking for projects throughout the state of Minnesota. So priorities, again, our priority is to fund projects with strong community backing, focus on that youth engagement, and or organizations that have a proven track record of successful investments. So let's talk about who can apply. Basically, any type of organization can apply, whether that is local government, schools, nonprofits, private businesses, co-ops, or any combination therein. Okay, yeah, let's see, next slide. So what can these grants be used for? Did you go? Yeah, there we go. Now that you know you can apply, let's look at some projects you may want to conduct. Basically, as long as your project improves the community in some fashion, whether that's outcomes or experiences. We have provided a condensed list that you see here. This list is more to help provide thought, more to help provoke thought and help you figure out if your project would be eligible. Some of these projects have been provided by community members and members of our team that know about some of the activities already happening around Minnesota. For example, spay and neuter programs. The Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe has a wonderful program with a nonprofit that does some spay and neuter programs on the weekends, and so that that nonprofit could potentially request some funding to help with that project if they wanted to expand or something like that. Housing stability, that is a huge issue, as we all know, within the Twin Cities. But basically, any of these types of projects that you see here are eligible, as well as others. So now that we know what kinds of projects, let's talk about our eligible expenses. So this list is obviously not exhaustive for allowable expenses. It's just to provoke thought. Most projects have some type of equipment that's needed, whether that's laptops, security equipment, medical equipment such as wheelchairs or beds. Basically, typically the official definition of equipment is over 5,000, or it has to have a life expectancy of over a year. That's how we define equipment. Training. You may want to put on some training for your folks in your community. So you may need to rent the space. You may need to print materials. You might need to develop a curriculum. Supplies. These are your consumables such as pens, first aid kits, promotional items, etc. So we all know how hard it can be to get those folks to come to your meeting or your training without a little enticement, shall we say. So how about being able to provide food or drinks at those meetings? Or even how about childcare so your trainees can partake without worrying about those kiddos? We got you covered there. Promotional items for distribution at events or trainings. And then sometimes you need a little temporary outside help to get your program up and running. So having an ability to pay for a consultant to come in and help develop a training curriculum or develop a plan, that's an allowable expense. Other times you need to hire somebody to actually run the program. Please be aware that if funds are being used for salary, the person must be a brand new position within your budget. In other words, if you're in your general budget, if you have 20 people who work in your organization, you can't just move one of them over to the grant. You have to hire a brand new person to bring your personnel count up to 21. There are some finer details to that, but today is not the day to educate you on that. So just be aware that there are some potential bumps if you want to request salary expenses and do your research. All right, so now that you know what you can do, let's talk about some of those ineligible expenses. These are pretty standard within Minnesota grants. So, but today we want to make sure that to highlight that everyday operating expenses are not allowed, and those might be salaries, rent, utilities, website hosting, insurance, etc. The other item I want to highlight here is your pre-award costs. Can you go back? Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Let's say your organization doesn't have the capacity today to write that grant application, so you decide to pay someone to write it for you. Well, that cost is not allowed, and we won't reimburse you for that cost because that was before the grant performance period. So basically, any expense you incur prior to the executed grant agreement is ineligible for reimbursement. All right, so now let's move on to what you need to put in that application. Now that you understand what that your project's eligible. So let's start putting these things together and start that application. So because OCM is still new and hasn't fully developed the application, we're still writing our grant guidance. But we do know that the legislature wants OCM to evaluate at a minimum these 10 items on this page. This is in statute. So if you want to develop your responses, you can go out to this to the 342.70 statute, subdivision 3 to get this list, or you can wait for the grant guidance to be posted on the website. And I'm not sure if the chat feature is enabled to even put that in the chat, but we definitely have it out there on the website, I believe. It's here that I like to remind folks of 8th grade English. And that essay that you had to write on that test, and you got dinged because you didn't answer the question. So always read the question, answer the question, read the question again, and then read your answer. How'd you do? Did you answer the question? So, project description. Let's talk about what we need to see from you. Well, first off, can you believe that we want you to tell us about your project? I mean, who would have thought, right? So who do you hope to help? What are you going to do? What tools or resources might you need to accomplish your project? Where do you hope to do your project? Why? Why does the community need the project? You know, what do you think the outcomes are going to be? Talk about those expected impacts. Tell us about your SMART objectives. Remember, SMART objectives, SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And then tell us why your organization is equipped to do the project and have those outcomes. Show us other similar projects your organization has been successful at. Of course, we want to know in detail how much it's going to cost. Don't just tell us the project costs $70,000. Show us your math. Remember 8th grade? Show us the math. Describe what you're buying. Which sounds better to you? $10,000 for beds for a housing project, or 10 king-size beds at $1,000 each for participants moving off the streets and into stable housing? Which one would you want to fund? All right. Then let us know if you're collaborating with any other organizations out there. If you're going to supplement the grant funds with other non-state dollars, or if you have the capacity to provide those in-kind contributions for the project. Will you be working with youth? Don't forget to tell us about that. Finally, we want to know how your project addresses community development, safety, and stability. Remember, 8th grade English. Once complete, give it to a friend. See if they think you answered the question. All right, let's continue on. Let's talk about what you need to submit along with that. Well, it's going to depend upon the type of organization you are. And so here are some of the forms, depending upon your organization, that you may have to provide. All right, next slide. CanGrow. So CanGrow is a program designed to help eligible farmers, eligible organizations provide technical assistance and loan funding to farmers entering the legal cannabis industry. Can you switch the slide for me? Thank you. It includes 2 components to this grant. We've got our TA, technical assistance grants, ranging from $10,000 to $50,000. That's what organizations can request. And then we have our revolving loan grants, and those grants will be between $200,000 to $500,000, and those go out to what we call CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, banks, and they will provide loans to farmers to help them enter or expand into the legal cannabis industry. Basically, both of these programs, the goal is to equip farmers with the necessary resources and support to navigate those regulatory challenges. Okay. Let's see. Sorry. So definitions, we've got definitions again. Eligible organization, again, is just referring to nonprofits, schools, private businesses, community groups, etc. Industry, we're just talking about the legal cannabis industry in the state of Minnesota. So I may leave off the whole like legal cannabis industry. I might just say the industry, right? But we're fully talking about legal cannabis industry. And then technical assistance. Technical assistance helps an organization address a development need or a resource gap by providing support such as guidance, custom training, resources, tools, webinars, etc. I just have to point that out because we're talking a lot about technical assistance with this grant. So technical assistance, the TAG grant, we just had to create an acronym because we could. So this line of funding is to help develop TA or technical assistance or provide technical assistance to farmers that want to get into or expand their business within the legal cannabis industry. We created project categories that the technical assistance may fall into, such as cannabis specific support, business planning, land use, et cetera, et cetera. And then we went ahead and we also considered how is that going to be delivered? You know, is that going to be scalable? You know, webinars, is it going to be one-on-one consultations? Or is it going to, are you going to just have people come to a workshop or a training at your facility? You know, or maybe it's just a networking happy hour kind of thing. I don't know. You tell me what you're going to do. So, let's just as long as it helps farmers with those regulations and understanding those. So moving over to the revolving loan side, remember that this program is eligible to nonprofit corporations who have the capacity to provide loans to farmers who want to enter or expand into the industry. The loans are for projects that would not otherwise happen without the loan. In other words, the farm has no excess funds to take on this project that helps them enter into or expand their cannabis farm. Loans will not be for everyday operational expenses. We've gone ahead and pre-identified some categories that loans may cover depending on your licensure status, as you can see here. So our priorities on the next slide. Basically, CanGrow prioritizes organizations that have demonstrated success in providing technical assistance, especially for farmers who face barriers to education or employment. The program also focuses on projects that serve areas with social equity eligible residents, ensuring equitable access and support throughout the state. Okay. So on the next slide, you're going to see who can apply. So both programs, CanRenew and CanGrow, are open to a variety of organizations, including nonprofit organizations, educational, schools, private businesses, community groups, etc., right? The key requirement is the capacity to make meaningful investments or provide essential support services. Now, for the revolving loan grant, we have nonprofit corporations, and those nonprofit corporations, remember, these are CDFIs, that Community Development Financial Institution. The CDFIs are nonprofit corporations, and they have to have these characteristics, like a board of directors and the technical skills to analyze the projects and all those items that you see here. I don't believe that you need me to read the PowerPoint to you. So let's continue on. So what the CanGrow program focuses on helping farmers enter or expand into the cannabis industry. Projects that encapsulate that intent on the technical assistance side, and then it's just using one of the 3 delivery methods shown here on this slide that your organization has the capacity for. So webinars and books are useful, but they get outdated, right? But they're good because they're scalable. One-on-one consultations are awesome, but they're labor intensive. Classroom trainings are good when you need to talk to a bunch of people at once, but you need the space for that. So what is it that your organization has? What do they need? And how are they going to deliver that assistance to those farmers? On the revolving loan side, we went ahead and provided some potential projects that may need a loan depending upon where you are in your process. You'll see we identified some loan projects for non-licensed farmers wanting to enter the industry. Maybe they need some land determinations for watersheds or some basic help with writing a business plan or something. For licensed farmers who want to expand or improve efficiency, maybe they found some gaps in their security and they want to increase production and need a piece of equipment or something. What does that farmer need? You tell us. Remember, these projects are projects that wouldn't be undertaken without the assistance of the loan. Hopefully, this has sparked some ideas on potential projects that might be needed. Let's move on to eligible expenses. So, eligible expenses. For the technical assistance side, the types of allowable expenses depends upon your project. Expenses should be reasonable and aligned with the development of your project. Equipment such as tables and chairs probably wouldn't be allowed for a webinar project, but may be allowed but may be needed for a classroom delivery project. Training supplies and renting of space need to provide a training or workshop. You may need some food or beverages for those trainings to entice folks to show up. Promotional items for distribution at events or trainings, or maybe a little leaflet that helps farmers with some crucial information. And then sometimes you just need a little outside help to get your program off the ground. So having an ability to pay for that consultant to help develop a training curriculum or develop a plan. And then you still sometimes need that person to help run that program, right? But remember what I said in CanRenew. Please be aware that if funds are being used for salary, the person must be a brand new position within your budget. Just remember, there's potential bumps with this. And if you want to request salary expense and to do your research before utilizing those dollars if awarded. And if you're awarded, we'll help you figure some of those, make sure you're on the right track. Grants for the revolving loans will be provided to those CDFIs, those banks, right? Then farmers will fill out an application with the bank for the project, and then that will help them enter or expand into the industry. And those projects might be for equipment, marketing campaign, or getting a technical service provider to come out to the farm and provide assistance with your current, whatever your barrier is that you're currently facing. So those are the type of eligible expenses. Let's talk about ineligible expenses. Again, very similar to what we saw in CanRenew. The biggest takeaway for today is that everyday operating expenses are not allowed. I don't think we need to review that again today, so we'll just kind of keep on going. There we go. So again, we're at the point where you can start your application. OCM, we're still new. We haven't changed since I mentioned that before in CanRenew, and we haven't fully developed the application as we are still writing the grant guidance. But we do know the legislature wants OCM to evaluate at a minimum these 6 items on this page for technical assistance. This is in statute, so if you want to start developing your responses, you can go out to statute 342.73. That's 342.73 for the CanGrow statute to get this list, or you can wait for the grant guidance to be posted on the website. Remember, this is where our 8th grade English comes out to play. And remember that essay that you didn't do so good on that test? Remember what that teacher said. Did you answer the question? No. So let's answer the question. Let's talk about what we need to see from you. All right. Project description. What type of farmer do you hope to help? What are you going to help with? What tools or resources might you need to accomplish your project? Where do you hope to conduct the project? Don't forget to tell us the why. Tell us why your organization is equipped to do this project and have those outcomes. Show us other similar projects your organization has been successful at. Of course, we want to know in detail how much it's going to cost. Let us know if you're collaborating with other organizations, or if you're going to supplement the grant funds with other non-state dollars, or if you have the capacity to provide in-kind contributions for the project. And then remember, 8th grade English. Once complete, give it to a friend to see if they think you answered the question. All right. So what do you need to submit for this? Again, it depends upon the line of funding and what type of organization you are. So here's the forms that you'll need to submit depending upon which type of organization you are. And then I think we have a couple of questions. If you have any questions, you can always email us at this at our generic inbox at cannabisequity@state.mn.us. And I know that we requested at the when you registered for this session that you asked some questions, and I think the next slide has those. So, do you have to reside in Minnesota to qualify for these grants? No, we do not require a state residency for them. But we do want all the projects and the activities to be carried out in the state of Minnesota. Another question that came in was, what is a reasonable timeline for dispersal of funds from the grant programs in order to plan cash flow? These grants are reimbursable grants. So that means that you need to submit all your documentation. You need to purchase your item, you submit all your documentation, and then we'll send it through the state process, and then you'll get issued a check. So a lot of grant programs, they only require you to submit your invoices once a quarter, but we'll take them once a month, you know, in order to facilitate cash flow. We understand that. So once a month, you can submit those. Do I have to live in or open the business in a social equity qualified area to be considered for a grant? So for CanRenew funds, they must be issued, they must be used in eligible communities identified as social equity areas. For CanGrow, the priority is given to those organizations that work in the eligible communities, but residency in the area is not required. And did we have any other questions, Jess?
Thanks, Lucy. All of the questions were either answered throughout the presentation, or you will be able to find them on our website, which is mn.gov/ocm/social equity, which is on the screen here. So when we have our FAQ guide up, you'll be able to see the answers to some of those questions up there. But that is all we have prepared to share about our grant program for today. Thank you all for your time. If you have any other questions or need further assistance with the RFP and understanding the RFP, you can reach out to us at cannabisequity@state.mn.us, or you can visit our website at mn.gov/ocm/social equity.